unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
Question for you. Nobody's watching you. You can answer as honestly as you want to. You don't even have to say anything. You can keep your answer in your brain. If this Luigi fella had targeted Anthony Fauci, or maybe Bill Gates, or George Soros, would you be as outraged? Would you be moralizing online? I don't know. Maybe you didn't do that. How would you think? What would you feel about it? Happy, sad, outraged? I mean, maybe somebody's listening to this. It was a Fauci disciple during COVID. I doubt it. All those people unfollowed me even before Fauci, you know? But it's a big topic, you know? When is too much too much? When is too much enough? When do the people take matters into their own hands? You know, the government is supposed to, ideally, protect the citizens from infringements, right? Protect your property from theft, you know, provide a little bit of arbitration perhaps, but mostly security of the borders, you know? That's what government should ideally do. In my estimation, that's baseline. You know, it's not to provide you happiness. It's, you know, it's not to give you things. It's not to make things for you. It's to make sure that you can go about your business, you know, without being unduly fucked with by criminals, right? So obviously, that's not what is happening anymore. It's been quite a while since that happened. You know, you got to stretch to find examples of people doing that. I mean, you're going to get some video or story about some cop that saved somebody. Well, but even that notwithstanding, more stories are cops actually infringing on people's rights, bumming people out unnecessarily. Look, I'm not an all cops are bastards kind of a guy, really, but kinda, you know. Back the blue. Okay, I get it. If they actually do their duty to uphold the Constitution, okay, great. But the way I see it, we have the duty. If you farm out that duty to protect the neighbors, if you say, oh, the cop's going to do it, it's not my job. Well, that's how you get a bunch of people standing around while somebody's on fire in a subway. You know? Not my job. My job is to put this on Instagram. That's the kind of mentality that leads to that. And, you know, the cities are filled with that. Not my job. It's not my job. You know, and cities enforce that. Government people, bureaucrats enforce it. If you do, you know, look at Daniel Penny. He stepped in to protect his fellow man. And what they do to him, you know, he ultimately got off, but the process is the punishment. And then what do you get? You get a girl on fire, nobody does anything. You get a woman slashed in the throat, nobody does anything. Because the government people sent their message. Don't do anything. If you do something, you'll get in trouble. That's our job. And then they don't do their job. you know. At what point do people take matters into their own hands? You know, I don't react the same way as a lot of people do with the Luigis and there's other examples. I kind of low-key endorse anything that sends a message to the public, you're on your own. Like when I see cops, like what was that thing, Uvalde, when it came out that the cops had no duty to go in and they didn't go in, they took too long, and some of the mothers had to rush in. It was just talking about an embarrassment for the concept of protect and serve. That concept was blown out of the water. And I think that the other court decision was in Florida, maybe from a school shooting or maybe something else, I don't know. But there was a court decision that said cops don't actually have a duty to protect you. This is something we've all kind of known. You know, it's kind of dumb to call a cop. They're going to take, if you're in a city now, you're lucky if they show up at all. You know, and these sound like complaints. For most people, it's like a complaint. Oh, the cops don't even show up and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like going, okay, this is actually headed in the right direction as far as I'm concerned, because that's, again, something that's telling you you are responsible. You've got to do something. And to me, that goes back to the original founders' thinking, you know, well-armed militia, blah, blah, blah. But the whole idea was you are the citizen. You're the army. You're the protection. You're the person that's supposed to protect our borders. You're the person that's supposed to protect your family. Not some disconnected stranger getting a paycheck who's, you know, a mile down the street and already on edge. No, you. You're the one. Anytime you farm out or outsource your accountability, your responsibility, you're stepping into immorality. It's immoral. It's immoral to ask somebody else to put their life on the line for you. That's immoral. You can do it if you want to, but hey, would you mind putting your life on the line for me? I'll give you some money. That's not moral. Nothing moral about that. Morality is, I'll put my life on the line for you. You know, or at least I'll help. Maybe, you know, where's the line? Nobody's expected to sacrifice themselves. But some people are very willing to just ask other people to sacrifice themselves. It kind of blows my mind, that level of entitlement. You have to show up and step in the line of fire for me. Really? Why? Why should a cop protect you? He's got a family. He's got a life. Well, because you got paid to do it. I don't care. That's called a bad contract to begin with. You know, if you put a piece of paper in front of somebody that says, sign this, I'll pay you X amount of money so you die before I do, to take the bullet for me, there's no morality in that contract. I don't know how I feel about whether or not it should be allowed or not. I mean, I guess you can't just get rid of immorality, you know, but you can at least notice it for what it is, right? And that's not moral. Outsourcing your security, that's not moral. You know, so when guys like Fauci are running around for free, and everybody's standing around going, why doesn't the government do something about it? Why don't you do something about it? Look, I'm not trying to tell you to be a vigilante or anything. You know, far from it. Censors, leave me alone. I'm just, you know, discussing the topic of what is your personal duty to yourself and your family and your loved ones and the people around you. You know, I'm tired of people just going, well, I was made to do it. I was forced to do it. I was coerced to do it. Were you really? Or were you just afraid of inconvenience? Well, it'll be inconvenient if I say what I think, because then people might frown at me. I might get fired. You know? I don't know. And then to see the grandstanding, we can't live in a society like this. Well, who's going to change it? You know? Is the government going to change itself? No. Why would they? Bureaucrats are not going to fire themselves. That's not going to happen. Okay? People have this busybody, self-justification, you know. Everybody's always going to justify their position. Not everyone, you know what I mean. Nobody's going to say, my job is useless. I'm wasting tax dollars. I'm out of here. And I think everybody else should go away. No, everybody's got to figure out how to stay on the gravy train, you know. Humanity's not going to change. The people have to do something. You know, I'm not trying to be like, revolution, blah, blah, blah. I don't think revolution goes with an obesity epidemic, okay? You know, as long as people are fat and happy and overstimulated with porn and video games and YouTube and TikTok and, you know, all these other things, there's not going to be a large revolution. You know, the left is trying to do that with stoking anger and stuff like that. And you can do it to a point. We saw that in 2020. You can get people, you can scare people, you can, more importantly, you can give them power to commit evil, to do evil things. You can say, hey, wear a mask. Nobody will know that you did it. You know? And we won't prosecute you. In fact, we'll bail you out like Kamala did and all these other leftists, bailing out these rioters, setting things on fire. But Merkley, aren't you just saying what they're saying? To take matters in your own hands? Well, kinda. But it's about who is doing what. If you, good person, don't do something to take control, if you just say, oh, the government will do it, I'll vote somebody in to do it, well, they will do it with their morals. And then you can just judge whether your morals against their morals if you want. You know? It's the problem with libertarian type people like me. I get why a lot of people like to call libertarians lolbertarians or whatever, LOL-bertarians. It's stupid, but I kind of get it because there is and I'm not nearly as ideologically libertarian as I used to be. But the criticism is fair because if you're like, just leave me alone, and you live in a system where people are elected and you're just leave me alone, that's all you're ever doing. If you're not running for office, if you don't believe in government, fine. I don't either, but it exists. It exists all over the world. It exists wherever humanity is. So you either engage in it or you kind of just got to be, you just got to know that things aren't going to go your way. You're going to be governed by somebody else who doesn't share your values. You know, it leaves a vacuum. If you don't take the seat and do nothing with it, like you can go into government, take your seat and roll things back and get rid of government if you want. It's going to be hard. I think that's what a lot of the new MAGA type people are trying to do. Get into government to shrink government, you know. That's allegedly been the conservative thing, but they obviously didn't do that. You can see that the Republicans never really do that. They're bloating it just as much as anyone. In fact, Trump, you can criticize the things that he did during his administration that at least inflating the money supply and whatever. But point is if you don't do something, nature is a vacuum, or nature abhors a vacuum, isn't that the saying? And it's true. If you don't take that seat, somebody else will, and the likelihood of them sharing your values, I don't know, is it 50-50? Good and evil? Kind of seems that way sometimes, you know? Again, I'm not saying you have a duty to go out and hunt down Fauci. That would be stupid, or whatever. But if and when somebody does, you just go, okay, that makes sense. Why didn't it happen already? I wondered that. I wondered that all the way through COVID. I wondered, why are people conforming? Why are they complying? It baffled my mind. Why? But they did. They just did. Put on the mask. Okay. Take this, inject this liquid into your arm. What is it? Doesn't matter. Shut up. Just do it. Okay. Now tell your friends to do it. Okay. Hey, you do it too. They somehow go out. Half the country turned into an army fighting on behalf of drug makers. Insane. Because they were told to. Was it fear? I don't know. I said in the last recording, I think a lot of people just like the feeling of power. Suddenly they were all deputized. They were all deputized, to yell and scream at their neighbors, call the cops on them. I don't even really want to talk shit about Karens. I think Gavin McInnes kind of gave a new spin to that. When suddenly we were all complaining about Karens, he was like, I like Karens. And I was like, you know what? You got a point there. It's good that Karens are at least doing something. Saying something. They see something they don't like. They might be wrong, they might be right, or whatever. But the fact that they see something that they think is wrong, they're like, I'm going to fucking speak up. It can be annoying looking. But that is kind of a good representation of not sitting around and waiting for somebody else to do it. I want to talk to the manager. Who's in charge around here? If you think about it, that's a proactive statement. It's saying, I want to talk to the person in charge. Even better is, who's the owner? You know what? I'm going to find him on Twitter and I'm going to tweet the owner himself. It's kind of embarrassing that, we ever had these sort of anti-Karen thoughts, because if you think about it, it's kind of lefty to think that way. Oh, you're taking matters into your own hand. How dare you? What are you doing? It's not your job. I'm shoplifting. Call the cops. It's not your job to stop me. Yeah, it is. It's your job. It's your job to keep society good. If you don't do something about it, then you got people burning to death in the subway and nobody helping. You get people stabbed in the throat in the subway. That's what happens when that kind of mentality takes hold. You get cities. You get blue cities. Virtue signaling people who tweet but don't do anything. I don't know. It's quite a tangent, but yeah. If Luigi had targeted Fauci, I don't know. What would you think? Or Soros? Bill Gates, you know? It really does baffle my mind that human beings don't do that more often. Like I've been saying this for the last couple of years. So when that Luigi thing, I already said this on an earlier recording, but I've always wondered, why doesn't this happen? And then when it happened, I went, oh, okay, so there he goes. It is happening. I don't know if that guy was a good target. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. I don't know how involved Luigi was in it, but let's just put it this way. Let's get off Luigi, but if somebody rapes your friend, is it just and right to just let it go through the courts and, you know, you sit there like a helpless little person, oh, we'll let the cops do it, let's make the system do it, and you know there's an activist judge who doesn't want to do anything about it because he likes the city to be a hellhole because that keeps their jobs. You know, there's people in government don't want to see crime go down. Just like homeless advocates don't want to see homelessness go down because they get paid based on how many homeless people there are. So they want to increase the amount of homelessness in order to keep money going and keep their jobs. They're not wanting to get rid of their jobs. You know? So somebody rapes your loved one, commits heinous acts, you know where they live, and you don't do anything about it. You know, to me, let's go back to the Old West because, again, I'm not advocating for anything here. But if you go back and tell a story about a guy who just goes out, you know, in an old Western movie, or let's say some urban movie from the 70s, and he hunts down that guy, Batman, perfect example. You know, there's a million different examples in literature about people who take matters into their own hands, and rapist guy ends up dead in an alley. Nobody knows who did it. The guy who did it doesn't say, but the guy's gone. The rapist is now gone. He's not taking up any more resources, you know. But what if you're wrong? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're not wrong. When you know. This is why I like things that put the power back in the hands of people who deserve and need the power. Like when somebody's breaking into my house, I'm the one that needs the power to do something. Not somebody at the end of a phone call. I am. I'll do it. I volunteer to do it. Just don't make it illegal for me to do it. Because that's the trick. They don't want competition. If we're all armed and we can take care of ourselves, that's a direct competition to them. Because they think they're the ones that are supposed to do that. So anyway, anytime something on their side emphasizes the fact that they won't do anything for you, I'm like, this is good. This is good. Because the more people realize that, the more they can drag themselves out of this haze, this dream that the government is there to protect them and to help them. It's not. It never will be. The conflicts of interests are glaring to anybody who decides to take even the most cursory glance at the situation. They don't have to help you. They don't want to help you. They want to give the appearance of helping you. Here you go. Here's a check. Go buy some boxed food that will make you fat. You know? I don't know. Again, I'm not asking anybody to go out and do some brave, heroic act because, again, the thing is, okay, so this brings me to another thing that the right wing is freaking out. Biden commuted all these death sentences. And I'm like, okay, well, I actually am for that. But these were heinous, horrible people. Yes, I get it. But I don't like farming out the responsibility to murder somebody to somebody else, even if somebody volunteers. If somebody's volunteering going, I'll kill him, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so into your, zest and zeal for murder. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea to have you going around murdering somebody just because you think somebody deserves it. Now, here's my offer. Capital punishment should be allowed if the infringed party agrees to do it. Like, oh, that person murdered my family. Well, there's a family member left, or there's a next door neighbor. Let's figure out what their parameters are. Somebody who directly is affected. I'm that guy's best friend. I'll do it. If you can get somebody immediately affected by that crime or that criminal to do it, then I'm saying, okay, cool. That works. Because it's not farmed out to an antiseptic, sterile third party. It's somebody that was directly involved. If they'll do it, if you'll do it, if you'll execute this guy, somebody commits a crime against me, let's say, or my family, and it should be the option to go, okay, the death penalty is available to you. Will you do it? And if the answer is no, then it's not done. The answer is yes. But this brings me back to what I'm saying, is that option is always available to you. No, it's not. I'll go to jail. I know. There's risk. There's always risk. That's the difference between bravery and courage. This is another thing that drives me nuts, is when people say, that Luigi was a coward. I don't think so. I already said this in that other recording, so I won't go into it again. But the lesson of today's sermon is that accountability matters. And accountability is always DIY. Again, I'm not saying you need to do that. You need to take matters into your own hand and go pick off XYZ person. You don't need to be like Luigi. I'm not saying that. But the thought needs to be there. It needs to happen. These things, if evil people are allowed to get away with evil, then evil grows. It just does. How would it not? And if your government is the one committing that evil, and you don't do anything about the government, then you're complicit. You're fine with it. And again, fair enough. You're probably fat. You're probably overweight like I am. I could easily lose 15 pounds and be lighter in my boots. Things like this revolution doesn't happen when people are overweight and addicted to porn. And social media, also porn. I'm just saying, what I've said, all media is porn. If you're addicted to some sort of virtual version of something real, that's porn. Virtual socializing is the porn version of actual socializing. Anyway, tangents. I just want people to, anything I can do, I'm probably doing a terrible job here because, I'm using an extreme example of, you got to go down and hunt down this person in, vigilante style. So, and I don't want to do that because that's the extreme version. But there's a million different smaller versions of that. Picking up the trash on your street, painting your neighbor's house, There's a million different things you can do to change your immediate vicinity. There's things that you can do to prevent crime. That's what I'm talking about. That's why these opportunities, when leftists go nuts, I see it as an opportunity for us to explain to that team and other people. Do you see now why you shouldn't call the cops? When somebody says all cops are bad, okay, great. We should have the guns instead, correct? No, I didn't mean that. Well, let's talk about it. There's the opportunity to at least point out how mind-fucked people have become. It's like all cops are bad, guns are bad, but only cops should have them? I don't get it. If cops are bad, this is boring. We all know this, right? Yeah, it's your responsibility. It's your responsibility. If you want society to be a good thing, you gotta nudge it in that direction in your own small little way. That's the one thing that I can say that it's at least somewhat admirable about lefties is, in a way, they seem, well, no, I'm going to pull back on that. Right-wingers are active in the fact that they open businesses, they have farms, they do these little things. That's all super important. And lefties, since they're all government, they get more active in the government. That's the problem with the right wing and the libertarian type people, is they leave, since they don't like the government, they don't get involved in the government. And that's why it gets taken over by lefties. Like, if freedom-loving people, if conservatives were half as interested in government as left-wingers wouldn't have hardly any influence in the government, I don't think, But it's a tall ask. I get it. I'm a hypocrite. I'm not running for office, I'm not running for office. I vote my own little way, and I do these stupid podcasts, and I post stupid things on Facebook pretending like I do my part, I don't know. That's enough of that. Thanks for listening.